Hello and welcome back everyone to our second best of 5 of the day. We got Demi versus Déca. Which, I look forward to saying very quickly. Demi, Déca, Demi, Déca, Demi, Déca. If someone will go ahead and correct my beautiful French pronunciation of D-E, accent aigu, C-A, that'd be appreciated. But that's the shot I'm taking. Based off of 4 years of French, which clearly have done nothing for me. Sounds more impressive than it is. We are in the game. In the bottom right, we do have the red Zerg, Demi. That little sparkle twist. In the top left, it is Déca. Or is it Déca? I feel like the C is usually like a soft one. So maybe I'm biased. We do have PVZ, of course. Best of 5. Both these players ready to go ASAP. So beautiful timing on that one. This is the Big Brain Bouts number 34. We do have 4 best of 5s today. We already saw 1 best of 5. With the victor of that best of 5 being the Cannon Rush Supreme Boanon. Able to perform different Cannon Rushes, different follow-ups. Macro out a little bit as well. And a poor Azura fell to the cheese. A little bit. Now we're on Demi versus Déca. We have Namtra versus Eric up next. And then the title match is going to be ShoWTime and Laser. Is that what they call it? I do love that they kind of mimic this after, you know, like the fighting. But someone who has zero clue about fighting. I don't think I've ever watched it. No, I must have watched it. At some point in my time hanging out in the green rooms with the likes of Roddy and Todd. I must have watched some. Todd especially. Todd loves watching some of the MMA bouts. But anyway, totally off topic. Totally not related to StarCraft. We do have a very normal looking PVZ to start off with. And after the roller coaster whirlwind that was just waiting for the Cannon Rush to happen, which took about 2 minutes, I'm almost like at a loss of what to do for the non-action start of a PVZ. Where's the 12 pull? Where's the Cannon Rush? Where's the proxies? What's going on? But it is a totally normal macro game. And once again, you know, when they set up these bouts, they do try to make it as close as possible, or theoretically as close as possible, in case, you know, if cases where there are no history between the two, you can only guess. And I was wondering if there is history between these two players. So I'm going to go ahead and check that as we wait for Stargate, okay, to be the choice. And with a Stargate, we're not expecting action too quickly. No, they've never played each other. Nope. Officially never played each other. They're coming in from, technically, I guess you could say they're coming in from 2 different regions, with Demi being representing India. But pretty sure they both live in Europe, right? And that's why this happens very easily. Everything is on Europe today. So we also have Eric, who is usually, again, Latin America, which is now North America, but he represents Brazil. And I believe he also lives in Europe. So that's why it's so easy to set this up. So, but it's so easy to set it up, yet we have the different matches that you generally would not see, which is pretty cool. It's a neat feature, I suppose, of a couple of people actually living in Europe and being able to perform in other regions. And we do have questions about where Roddy is, and that's totally fair. He is usually the host. Where is he? Where's Roddy? Oh, God. Where is he? I can't go without him. He is taking a little bit of a break. It seems like he's on the road. That doesn't take many breaks. I was actually pretty surprised to get the message. Roddy's kind of a workhorse. So I think it's good that he's taking a break. And I was very honored that it came to me. I guess I did an okay job co-casting when I was at Roddy's house. I did a decent amount of lings. 12 lings could definitely cancel a Nexus. It will definitely kill him to death in a single pylon. And the Oracle is kind of just chilling. Priority was on fixing the anticipated supply block, it looks like. So you realize that they have too many lings. You can't do anything about it because Warp Gate's not done. You try and prioritize the important things, and at that point, Oracle harassment wasn't as important, and bringing the Oracle back was not going to save the situation. So 2 pylons came down to try and fix the supply block. I sometimes feel like that's the worst thing about the little Ling hit squad. is that the Protoss really does have their pylons planned out for the first 4 minutes. Roachborn coming down. I mean, we don't have anything to be too scared of, so Demi could just be playing into Roaches and possibly even into a very aggressive mid-game, which is kind of what I'm expecting from Demi. Wasn't too sure about how Déca plays, but so far, so typical. You know, we have Twilight Council and a Forge coming down. We got all 4 gases up and running, so Robo is going to come down as well. Nothing too extreme, nothing too aggressive, and the 2 oracles just want to go ahead and get that scout, confirm what the heck is going on. It is interesting, it is only 2 oracles. So often we do see 3, but that is a choice that obviously the Protoss player makes. If you don't get that 3rd one, you can be getting faster, basically any tech. Twilight Council, Robo, both costing equivalent or almost equivalent to an oracle. That layer is coming down with an evolution chamber. Tons of gases, though. 6 gases coming up here. And Déca is going to be able to scout all of that technically, but only... Oh, look at the tiny little Roachborn. Look at it. Oh, Jojo Boo Boo. He's so cute. Boop. Anyway, but he was technically able to scout everything that happens here, right? But it's all about how active you are with your oracles. I was speaking a lot about what the Protoss was scouting of the Zerg. I haven't talked much about what the Zerg has scouted. Demi knows the 3rd base was the intention, saw oracles, and again, you know, there's only so much more you can do after this opener. You can absolutely go into something more aggressive. The Protoss player could have gone for 2 or only 3 gases, and then done something with kind of like a fake 3rd, if you will. But that is not the case here. The Overseer is getting bullied, but it looks like it did successfully bamboozle the Protoss. I was going to say. It's like the Changeling goes down there. Adept killed it maybe before the High Templars were seen. This was not a blink opener. This is right into charge and Archons and really right into Storm. So 6 gases for the Zerg, 6 gases immediately for Déca as well. And we got what looks to be a little more old-fashioned PVZs as well, which is coming back into style anyway, so it's not even correct to call it old-fashioned anymore. Lots of Roach Ravager coming into play for Demi. He did grab the Roach Speed as well as +1 missile. So lots of the Roach Ravager, not so many on the Banelings. I mean, you don't usually... I feel like we usually see Baneling Roach Ravager nowadays, but it's pretty much pure Roach Ravager at this point. Demi is maxing out very quickly with this composition, and we know that it is inflated thanks to the pure Roach Ravager composition. It still is just generally bigger. I mean, it might be a little inflated, and Protoss armies are pretty good against Zerg armies, pound for pound, but when they come at you with 50 more pounds, are you going to be prepared? Déca does have Storm, but very little protecting that Storm, and very little able to finalize the Storm kills. So the Storm will do a lot of splash damage, there you go, but it's not going to kill a lot of these units. Usually that's where the Immortals come in, or the Zealots, or a Colossus, or anything really. Charge lots if they're in big enough numbers, and that is currently a problem. There's just not a lot of Protoss army. The Storm is about to also be completely done away with. Only 1 more in the pocket of the Protoss. I don't see any more on the field. 2 more are coming in. Archons, unfortunately, aren't particularly helpful in this situation when they get to collapse in on the Roach Ravager. When the rest of the army is there alongside the Archons, then yes, they will be very, very helpful. But to try and consistently run out after the Roach Ravager, to try and get those last hits, that's where the Archon can very easily get sniped. So it is a very delicate situation right now for the Protoss. So far, a nice handling of the pressure. Demi, you could tell, was very hesitant to commit to any place. On the high ground, there was cannons, there was shield batteries, 1 cannon, but shield batteries, Immortals, charge lots warping in. If he dedicated to the main base, maybe he'd break through, but would it be quick enough so that the other army on the backside wouldn't go ahead and collapse in on it? All things that Demi really had to be concerned about, despite this super drastic difference in supply. That drastic difference in supply we know is overinflated. In a head-to-head fight, the Protoss is capable of handling it as seen there. Very nice, very calm handling of the situation. But it also could have been used to try and like hit multiple points, right? And that's where sometimes that lower army supply can be very difficult to use. If you got to split your army 50 here, 50 there, it's going to be pretty difficult. But no such problems arose there for Déca. Demi, had he chosen to split up the army, would have also lost some timing. And you can see he really did want to abuse that natural. It was looking awfully vulnerable towards the beginning of this engagement. Now, no longer. Does try to go to that high grounds, but there's very little to be found there either. I mean, you know, the armies can't really push into each other is kind of the funny thing. They just can't push into each other. So both players are moving away from these armies. We got Demi going into 10 mutas and +1 flyer, so I do expect more mutas on the field. And we have Déca already with 2 Stargates, and that's actually going to really ruin Demi's plans, because these Stargates building Tempests, no cancel on the Nexus, can actually go ahead and build Phoenix. Now, it's going to be very amusing to watch Tempest try and kill mutas. I don't think it'll be super successful. They're such slow shooters, but then mutas won't kill Tempest particularly quickly either. So, yeah, I think mutas just show up and then Phoenix will be made. And then it'll be pretty easy peasy. But so far, Déca does not know about the Spire. No idea about the Spire, actually. No idea about the mutas. They have collected themselves over to the right side, away from prying eyes. Déca lost the oracles anyway. To the queens that walked across the map. So there's not much scouting to be done, just the observer with the army. And it looks like Demi, you know, seeing the Tempests, realizing that this is going to be a bit of a weird situation than he was anticipating. He was probably expecting just big ol' max out Zealot Immortal Archon Storm. Is going to try and get the 1-punch muta count, I think is what's happening. Oh, Ravager's actually hitting a lot of those armies. No, okay, he actually does pull the trigger, but 19 mutas is still maybe 1-punchy. You know, when I say 1-punch, I mean that he's looking to just basically use and abuse these mutas. He knows that there is going to be a response possible when the mutas show themselves, and it's about what damage they can do before the Protoss responds to it. The Roach Ravager finally doing what they wanted, busting up into the natural, but you can see how unsuccessful that really was. They're doing very little damage. Only a handful of probes have gone down. That's probably to the mutas, which are managing to take out some stalkers that are reinforcing, but ultimately have just lost their lives. 4 probes and maybe a couple of units for all of Demi's Roach army, and not all of his mutas, but 11 mutas that now have been seen and now are being responded. Oh my god, okay, now it's 34 mutas. He had 23 mutas building? Oh my god, that's a lot of mutas. That's spicy. All right, 40 mutas when these 3 pop. 4-0. That's pretty good. But again, Déca has the means to respond. Not just 2 Stargates anymore, but 3 Stargates, and the Fleet Beacon obviously can start up that Phoenix range. Phoenix range with, let's say, 8 Phoenix, I think would just kill everything. They get fairly easy to control once they have range. Without range, there's a lot more of that, oh my god, the muta is going to turn back on me. But it's just so much easier when the range is done. And it's not like these mutas can necessarily pounce on the army. The Archons would be coming in here. Well, I was a little wrong about that. The Archons are not done, and Demi actually pulls the trigger. Very courageous, but sometimes being bold pays off, and being bold right there absolutely did. Fleet Beacon gets destroyed. Stargate actually in the sights of the mutas as well. It's getting a little more dangerous as the Archons that were already formed finally do come in. But Demi just took away the most powerful thing that I think Déca actually had. Again, Phoenix are an answer. They are one of the better answers, but it's really Phoenix range that makes them so easy to control. And I'm really emphasizing the difficulty of defending here, because that is probably the best thing going for Demi right now. It's not necessarily the actual army. In a head-to-head fight, this has trouble. But it is the fact that it's going to be running around, doing damage, poking, harassing, messing up Déca, and perhaps if Demi messes him up enough, then there is a full collapse on top of the army. 40 mutas on top of the remnants of the Protoss army. Things have calmed down a little bit. Déca has been unsuccessful many times trying to get that 4th base up and running. 1 was killed. I think 2 or 3 have been canceled. Temple Archives now under threat as well. Supply block is a little unfortunate, but the emphasis I would still say is on this range finishing, which is absolutely being chronoed. 4th base might still get its chance to get up and running, as this game is not ending anytime soon. We're at 9 Phoenix. Shield by Overcharge going to be popped. It gets a wise decision. Phoenix, oh, they get jumped upon. That's exactly what's so scary about handling mutas. You have to be paying attention, and they're ability to fall back and kill your Phoenix can actually kill you. If they try to run away, you're just pretty screwed. But if they fall back and just take the direct fight when you're not expecting it, that can snowball into victory. Very dangerous game, very dangerous. You see Demi just doubling down on the air army built corruptors. which won't die super easily to the Phoenix. They will have maybe some trouble against the Tempest, but only if the control is really, really excellent. They'll be getting into the second. Oh my god, the storms! He waited way too long! Way too long in those storms. Did he not? I maybe didn't realize how many storms there were. Maybe he thought that Déca wasn't paying attention. I don't know what happened there, but that was so many storms actually hitting the heart of the army. Now 20 mutas, still a fine number. Many of them injured, however, and that did just completely repel the muta army. They can no longer be buzzing around the main base. They have to go back and recuperate, which doesn't take that long because they got a health regen buff back in heart of the swarm, but still they had to fully retreat, giving Déca that time to get comfortable on 4 bases, 8 Phoenix with their range, and possibly some SAG defense as well. Notably at the 4th base, which has only just gotten up here. Demi has remained maxed out this entire time. Behind all of this harassment, behind all of this potential, there's been a lot of macro. We have plenty of bases. All the gases that the drones are next to are taken anyways. We got extra bases that could be used later on, which might not be mining gas anytime soon, but they could if this game actually continues going and going and going, which it seems like it will. Déca is not dying anytime soon. If the 4th base was still not taken, I'd be a little more questioning how Déca survives, but the 4th base is taken. It's protected. It's got probes on it. Eventually we'll get the gases as well. And with the 4th base and a solid army to build on, then we're going to have a longer game. Protoss player might not ever have a bank if they continue to be denied bases, and they really have to struggle to get them. But they might not need a bank if they have the perfect Protoss late game army. Demi has made plenty of time. Okay, for spines. It's comical. 18 spine crawlers on the field. I was going to say, Demi has bought enough time, certainly, with all of the pokes and prods, the Roach Ravager into the muta, into the mass muta, into the dive, so on and so forth. He has bought enough time to get so many bases, so many drones, so many upgrades, and technology, and also time to figure out how he wants to play the rest of this game out, which I think is something to be valued. You're not under the constant pressure. You're the one that's like, okay, this is what the Protoss is doing. How am I going to handle this? That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. Lots of us have great ideas on StarCraft and terrible execution. Some people have the opposite, actually. But it is a good sign for the Zerg player when they have all this map, when they have all the control of the game, and they do have a building bank to do those tech swaps. Should be quite brutal for Déca. Déca is finally ready to go. As ready as they'll ever be, perhaps. It's no guarantee that they'll be able to get a 5th base. At least some DT harassment finally came in the Dark Shrine. So 1 DT to the bottom left, 1 DT to the top right. But pop goes the Ultra. Pretty wonderfully timed Ultra, too. Oh, the Muta is holding up so much of that supply. Don't just want to lose their lives for nothing. So this is a bit disappointing. Even though the Mutas are being moved away from, you still want to do something with them. And this was not it. 8 drones have gone down to some DT harassment somewhere. I mean, I know this base went down, but I'm not sure where else drones went down. Unbelievably, with 18 spine crawlers, some of these bases aren't actually covered. All of them are here. Which might be a little overkill. Maybe. Now the Phoenix are unleashed. They can go across the map and kill drones, and they are almost guaranteed going to find more success, even if there are spore crawlers. The mutas, they dived so close to the army. It was very unfortunate. They didn't even get a chance to get some surprise damage done, whereas the Phoenix, they did avoid the Corruptor army, and the spore crawler doesn't stop them from picking up all those drones. Certainly worth it at this point in time as you move away from Phoenix. Just sack the Phoenix for the most part. So +2 air weapons is finally on the way as well. It's been a very slow progress on getting to the ultimate air army thanks to all of the attempts on Déca's life in this game and the very hard-fought 4th base coming up so late. But we're finally there. Finally another upgrade. Maybe we're building a little bit of a bank because, you know, during a lot of the aggression, the 3 base setup did not look comfortable for a Protoss. Minutes were ticking by, and we know that 3 bases doesn't last long in Legacy of the Void, but the army remained rather intact. There wasn't a lot of replacing the army, so it'd be very different if you replace the army, replace the probes, replace the Nexus, replace the army. Then Déca is absolutely screwed. But Déca's been able to hold on to an army, build up a decent enough economy at a decent rate, and we have the typical PvZ, true to the lore. You know, we get the Protoss quality units, and fewer of them, I guess. The army supply is going to be pretty similar, but you know what I mean. They're high quality versus the Zerg's ability to overwhelm. So, not with one army, but 2 or 3. This is exactly what the designers intended when they made these races. I'm not sure what Demi's plan is right now, actually. I said that he had a lot of time to think about how to play out this late game, and then I make sure to mention it doesn't mean he's gonna win. 8 Ultras. We're perhaps looking to completely conquer the ground army. Let's say this was 3 Archons, 5 High Templars, and 2 Immortals. Then enough Ultras would take care of that. Enough Ultras would defeat that. But it's not that. It's 5 High Templars, but then 9 Immortals. This is a very anti-Ultra army. 19 Corruptors, 8 Ultras, 2 Vipers, which I don't believe are part of that fight, versus 9 Immortals, an Archon, 9 Tempests, 2 Carriers, and 5 High Templars. The 5 High Templars obviously being very important for, well, mostly the air, actually. Storm doesn't do too much to Ultras. But also for feedbacks on the Vipers, which I'm not sure Déca has seen yet, but should be expecting. You don't make it to the level that these guys have without having spellcasters, including in your army. Blink is even on the way. We do have a handful of Stalkers that can help chase down the Ultras, focus fire the Vipers, and help chase down the Corruptors as well. They're also obviously microable, so they can perhaps even go across the map, around the map, and start doing some damage. At least a bit of a distraction force. This base went down, and it was taken by the Protoss. Demi wasn't mining from it anyway, and is focused more so on mining from the top right side of the map. We are on Babylon for game number 1, just to remind you all, and it is not that big of a map. If you're expecting this late game PvZ, might have been thinking Altitude or Grespon, but absolutely not. Babylon it is. And Babylon should give us a fight basically like after this Nexus is taken, I feel like. Ultra's going for run-bys, and it looks like Baneling's rolled in on the Nexus as well. But there's not that much more room to play around with. You are going to be contesting this field. And this will probably bear where it either wins or loses for either player. And the Ultras were cleaned up by a fairly good recall, too. It was a very good number of units. One thing Déca doesn't really have is a lot of vision. I am noticing a lack of an Oracle, I would say, for the Oracle vision on the main army and the high ground. The Spine Crawler is moving over to the left side. It can get abducted, it can get sniped, the Oracle that is, but it's usually pretty worth it. It's a observer and surveillance mode is only going to do so much for so long. Yeah, exactly. And there you go, exactly. So to go in blind, you just don't go in. You can't go in blind. It also means that you're not sure when they're perhaps moving their Vipers, for instance. So for every Oracle that gets a revelation on the Vipers, there's the Zerg having to then think again about possibly moving forward with their units, because they know that they're going to be seen, and the Protoss player is going to be ready, waiting, perhaps with a couple of storms or a couple of feedbacks. And that's something that Demi doesn't necessarily have to worry about. Stalkers are going around, actually kind of defending and offending, given the chance. One Ultra will not defend against literally everything. We do have lots of upgrades on the board. Trying to count all of them. I can just kind of say that Demi's missing 2 Carapace on his air. It's easier to say what they don't have. 2 Carapace on his air. And Déca is still missing out on lots of air upgrades. +3 attack on the air did just finish for the Protoss, but also missing out on 2 of those armor upgrades. I guess a little covered by the 2 shields that the entire Protoss has, ground and sky. And +3 shields is also on the way. It looked like Déca was going to abandon this Nexus, but perhaps not quite yet. Shield battery overcharge, saving the Nexus, means it won't be available if there is an army fight. I think this one might have to be let go. It's not super ideal. Couple of feedbacks are nice. They were on the Vipers, not mistakenly on the Overseers. Like, it's kind of the intention of bringing the Overseers sometimes. Stalkers go into the top rights after defeating that one Ultra and are going to be able to take down this hatchery. Perhaps even this one. That's a decent number of Stalkers, and Lings are rushing over to try and defend. They do have Adrenal Glands, so they are full on cracklings, but more Protoss army goes to the top right. Both of them with banks, but Demi, obviously, with the biggest bank ever. 10,000 minerals just before he built 60 Lings. That's a lot. 3,000 gas as well. Is not as comfortable, but still pretty comfortable. And 17 drones did go down alongside that hatchery. Finally, more Zerg army. Not just the Lings, not just the Banelings, but the Ultras too. Come forward and will push away this army. And Demi's not going to be crying over a lost hatchery or even 20 drones for too long because, again, 9,000 minerals in the bank. Honestly, this would usually be the time in which I start cracking jokes, conversing with my co-caster. Perhaps I'll just talk to you guys, because what usually happens is not that there's nothing going on, but there's nothing extremely important going on for a while. Lots of poking and prodding. I mean, important for the players, right? Like inching forward, inching backwards, whatever. But as far as the spectating experience... As far as spectating experience, we have none. No, not quite that bad, but it is going to be down to one big battle, one clobber of the action figures, and then it's going to be game over. But we don't know when it's going to happen. We do have a little bit of a two-pronged attack going on. Déca once again with the ground army, but also recalling some air army. So we have a little bit of a back and forth tug of war to the top and a little more of a stalemate to the bottom. How many macro hatcheries does Demi have? None. He just built enough hatcheries on the field, which might be a problem. 20 larvae is really not that much if you're going to completely remax. And we might have a big remax coming in soon. This isn't really both armies at this point. Yep, here comes more of Déca's. Yeah, now that the entire army is over here, Demi is a little less confident about killing this Nexus. I assume these are a bunch of changelings. Yes, they are. Both of them now expanding to the bases to the top. I didn't think this was ever mined out. This is possibly the only fresh base left. Yeah, I believe so. Which you think Demi wouldn't need, but we know how this dynamic works. The Zerg player needs to throw away far more resources than the Protoss to actually win these games. And already you can see the resources lost reflecting the PvZ. I say already as if this game is not 28 minutes long. It is. But it's par for the course of the resources lost. And Demi taking away 5,000 gas from his opponent and putting it in his own pocket by completely mining out a base. It'd obviously be good news. Nexus once again going down. For Demi, losing hatcheries is really no big deal. 9,000 minerals is a lot of hatcheries. For Déca, losing Nexus is kind of a big deal. 400 minerals, a third of his resources, and he might have to be rebuilding his army at any time. One Tempest gets abducted, two Ultras almost get bopped. Attack on the top side, though, however, it's always another attack. I actually really like this. This is quite enjoyable. Déca making sure to have multiple attacks going on, is even catching Demi by surprise. I think we can officially say that. One Ultra, once again, not enough to defend the top right. Drones going down yet again. Lings coming in single file, not going to take care of this, especially with Papa Archon defending. And DTs are in the main base, heading straight toward that Greater Spire, going to deny that +2 Flyer Carapace, which has been missing for quite some time. At this point, Déca not only completed +3 shields, but also his own +2 armor for his air, so a little better on the upgrades for the Protoss. 20 drones went down with all the harassments. A hatchery yet again. Demi, I don't know if he would rebuild drones. Rebuild the hatchery, possibly, but I don't know if now is the time to just give up on drones. I think it is. I don't think you're definitely not going to get that much bigger of a bank, considering now that the bases are so hotly contested. So I think it's now time just to try and max out and have a bigger army than your opponent. And Demi would. 20 more army supply in Demi's pocket. Still has to make sure to take an actual good engagement, however, and that's going to be more likely the more that the Protoss player is not back at home on their static defense, which is exactly what Demi was trying to go ahead and at least tackle. The Lings wanted to get on top of the static defense, take that out, and then maybe open up an opportunity for later on, but even with the Lings being cracklings, they did not do well. Reinforcements were there, army was coming back, and Demi does not find any wiggle room. Instead, just losing both top right bases at this point. Again, replacing them, not the biggest of deals, but it's getting bigger. I mean, how many bases have been killed? 4 hatcheries, many cancels, I would say. 77 mutas. Ooh, forgot about that. But the resources are not... They're not going up so much anymore. In fact, not much at all. I use the overlay in which you can see numbers. I love that you can see numbers, and you can see that the numbers on the bottom do not match the numbers on the top. And that's no good. Demi does not like that. It's possible that 2 bases will get up and running at the same time, and there'll be a little more of a trickle in. But 1 DT properly placed on the rally point of the drones. It's killing so many more. And Demi is going to lose his base again. You know, the Protoss player being outside of the static defense is the best opportunity for a Zerg army to win. Doesn't mean that it's an easy decision. But it looks like Demi is maybe... Nope. Thought he was going to go for it. He looked like he was going to go for it. He did not. Decides that's not the perfect army. It can be perfecter. He did just lose 26 drones, and he can replace that with either drones or army. 9 drones on the production tab, but... 9 larvae unused. Okay, 5 more. All right, so he's going to replace a little bit. Possibly up to like a base and a half of mining, perhaps. But I don't think it's going to work out. He's losing more drones anyway. Raider Spire and Spire are about to finish. Perhaps that's why Demi was hesitant to tackle this army, as Corruptors would not be able to reinforce. Yet he is tackling now. 24 Corruptors. Where the heck are they? There they are. I was like, this is not the entire army. This is so weird. Not at all. The Corruptors come in. The Vipers come in as well. A couple of parasitic bombs going down. And that was a very bad start to the fight for the Zerg player. They just didn't have everything collected. Something was shooting the air army, which is why I was a little confused for a second, but it was just the queens. So that was it. Recall going to be used to go down to the bottom left and then attack this base. He could actually build a mothership. I saw people mentioning mothership, and that's usually part of the late game army. I don't mind not getting a mothership for the main army, but I do think in terms of mobility, it's quite good. We saw a lot of that played around with the more late game PvZs we were seeing, and then for a while we saw, you know, less late game PvZs, but now we're back on more of a typical setup, I guess. Yeah, I feel like we're going to see more motherships being made purely to get units in and out of position. Demi's in a lot of trouble, by the way. He does have an almost 40 army supply lead. He did finally give up on trying to make those drones. So that's considerable. But the gas counts of the Zerg, and now the mineral count, finally losing all of that bank, means there will not be a remax of any sort. That's not even enough to build Corruptors. And Massling is not going to do it. So Demi needs to win with his army, which is entirely possible, but it's not something a Zerg player wants to be depending on. Great snipe of the Viper. I think that is worth the Stalker or 2 that was lost. Good reaction from Demi, though, as well, to Blinding Cloud at the last second to save the other ones. Déca still mining a decent amount. In fact, comfortably, this top right base was taken by him, and I'm sure the sights are now set on this actual corner base, but an attack is underway. Ling jumping on top of Immortal Archon. High Templars also been in danger, forced to slap down their storms, perhaps not in the best situation. A couple of storms did land on the Corruptor army, but that was certainly not the ideal fight. Déca was trying to move between bases and then got caught on this ridge. But it might not have been the worst fight either. Not the best, not the worst, and Déca's the one that has the remax is the real problem. The last few tempers are going down, but then Demi realizes there's not enough to kill the leftover Protoss army. Most of his army was in Corruptors, which not going to do very much. Going to run around and pee on a bunch of buildings, I guess. But what are they buying time for when you have 100 gas in the bank? And that is it. They're not buying time for anything. GG's, 34 minutes and 49 seconds. That game didn't begin with a cheese, but it certainly began with some serious aggression. Mass Roach Ravager into Mass Muta. And yet we still got a very, very long game out of it. Kudos to Déca for the defense. Now we move on to Royal Blood. Both players are ready. Let's go into Royal Blood. I actually have no idea what to expect. That game was very interesting. I know we had about 15 minutes of, PvZ things. But the first 15 minutes of the game, not the last 15 minutes, was full of twists and turns. I think there was a large chance for both players to win. Because obviously Demi with the aggression could have overwhelmed. But then honestly, Déca could have defended beautifully into an immediate counterattack. Never got the opportunity as things never went quite that well. But that game didn't feel like it was going to go to 36 minutes or what was it? With the first 10 minutes and how they were playing out. But it did, and it ended in this guy's favor. In the top right, we have Déca. In the bottom left, it is Demi. Thank you very much for that tip. Razor TL, thank you for the 10 bucks. Thanks for giving us the BBB today. Much appreciated. And big shout out to Basilisk. Continues to put on these tournaments. Have an awesome team. Has been an incredible member of the StarCraft 2 community since they showed themselves off at that Homestory Cup. Was that just last year? Time is truly a concept. Another normal-ish opener? No, not actually. Not only a pool first, but also a gas coming down. I mean, Déca did send out that probe fast enough to get the block, but you could always take your third as your natural. Many of the macro European Zergs would have done that. Demi, even though we're playing on Europe, I don't, and as such lives in Europe, I'm pretty sure. I don't actually think is really identifying as a European Zerg. I've talked about this before, but it's kind of weird how that happens, where you have actually a lot of people from the Latin America region actually in Europe. I don't know why that happened, but it did. Where there's some players who actually live up to their location stereotype when it comes to StarCraft. And then there's some who beautifully embody another location stereotype. And that would be, the best example would be Neeb. Neeb never lived in Europe. He would visit and occasionally would be practicing on the ladder just because, well, he practiced all the time on the ladder, sorry. But he never lived there. He would be practicing on the ladder in Europe occasionally if he was at a tournament. But he took all the qualities of a European Protoss, sucked them all up. And he was still a North American Protoss at heart. So I don't think Demi is sucked up all of the European Zergness. I feel like they're still a little more aggressive than most of the other Zergs. Maybe not a laser, I suppose. Just thinking Lambo, Serral, Reynor, basically. So I'm expecting Demi to once again be the aggressor, to be the one who starts it. As Déca is going into a Stargate, that further confirms my belief. Demi did get that gas and pool, and speed's finishing up fairly quickly, but we don't have too many lings on the field. Perhaps once they confirm that there's going to be a Nexus, because actually Demi has no idea what's going on in his opponent's base. Then a couple more lings will be made. As the Overlord has not tried to dip into the main base to get that confirmation, at most it would have seen the timing of the warp gates, which can't always be trusted. In this case, it is accurate. I imagine this was Stargate, then Warp Gate. So Demi should have some idea, and we see some Spore Crawlers being made. Spore in one base, 2 Queens in another. It's going to cover your butt for a little while. And there's the Ling scouting for the intention. Kind of missed the probe, but it saw the Oracle. Oracle plus Adept where it was equals third base is gonna be coming down. And like I said, maybe this is where we see a couple more Lings. Obviously not timed out with a faster speed build. This, the opener really had actually nothing to do with the way the rest of the game has played out so far. But Demi did like going for those additional Lings in the last game, and they did manage to get a cancel. It did screw up Déca's build a decent bit, having to get those pylons down. But it looks like Déca this time around is very much aware of the possibility, or rather, more suspicious that it's going to be an issue, so he keeps the Oracle at home a little bit longer. You know, at some point you do recognize your opponent as that guy who builds the Lings to be annoying, is one of those that guys. The Oracle finally went across the map, but 2 queens were also at the third base, so okay, Spore is the main natural. Twilight Council and Forge on the way. Following this up, Déca on 4 gases as well. Very similar, if not exactly the same build as last game, down to the 2 Oracles instead of 1. This time, no awkward pylons having to be built later third base. This is a more streamlined build for Déca, which bodes well for him, considering he did win the last game. Wasn't such an easy game to win, though. Demi is also doing a very similar build. Besides the opener, I'm like, I'm not crazy, right? I didn't just completely miss the same opener in the first game. It was a bit different. It didn't actually do anything here. It's into Lair, into Roach Warren, into +1 missile, and then into, I assume, Mass Roach Ravager, which was dealt with very nicely by Déca in the last game. They got to do a lot with the map, though. So if you move into Royal Blood, we can see that there's not really a situation in which the Zerg army moves into the natural and then is afraid of being caught by the third army. Like, it's the third is just not nearly as close. So we could see Demi once again all eyes on the natural, and it might be more effective this time around. And if it is effective, if it gets into the natural with its first push, that would be extremely difficult for Déca to hold. Because even in the last game, if it had done it with its first push, Déca did not have as many units set up in the natural as he eventually did. It would have been a little sketch. Adept did go down, by the way. We saw some micro on the third base, but nothing supremely important. Demi is definitely not going into Roaches, though. He has set up structurally to look very similar to the last game's opener, but he is not doing that. He's got a Spire on the way, he's got +1 melee on the way, and of course some more Lings to bother. Déca is going into charge Immortal Archon. Not nearly as quick on the Storm, I think it was Storm then Fleet Beacon then Storm this time around, but very similar because, yeah, last game Déca did go very quickly into Fleet Beacon. This is something that actually Hero's also been experimenting with, bringing in some of the Korean crowd, which I'm not totally convinced by, but I'll talk about it in a second. Lings it into the third base on top of a High Templar, as well as the probes. They kill the High Templar. That's already a very nice grab for something that is purely mineral-based. And what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Hero's been doing the Stargate thing. So Hero has been, no matter how the early game has gone, whether he's like ahead or behind, he has been going into very fast Stargates and Fleet Beacon, capital ships. I saw this work wonderfully in GSL, I believe it was, after watching it fail completely in like 5 other games. So I know it works. But what Hero did was that Hero went directly into 2 carriers, and he was basically looking to surprise the guy. Like, he threw out an army attack, killed a bunch of queens, went into carriers, and there was like 2 queens versus 2 carriers. Wasn't too pretty. That's not what Déca's doing, but the Protoss experiment to be going faster into the Fleet Beacon seems to be on the rise again, after we had that kind of a nice little period of a bunch of gateway units attacking and like back and forth and tug of wars. We're kind of getting back to like, okay, Lurkers are so freaking difficult to handle. Let's get into the Fleet Beacon as fast as possible. However, this fast Spire, which is what Demi was really honing in on, might ruin Déca's plans, because this is so fast and so furious, too fast, too furious, that this is where the mutas can absolutely overwhelm. 16 mutas versus 2 Tempests. I don't know how that looks. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how it looks, but it's not just the 2 Tempests, it's an Archon, it's a couple of cannons, shield batteries eventually as well. The muta is going for their drive-by, fly-by. And Déca is on his way to producing those Phoenix. This was so much faster. This was once again unexpected, as in it wasn't directly scouted. I'm not sure it was unexpected though, because there's no Roach Ravager presence on the field. So Déca was probably wondering what the heck was going on, and probably figured it's a real possibility, a fast Spire. So I think that would explain the static defense already being up on his 3 bases, and a rather conservative 3 bases as well. Perhaps if he expected something differently, he would have tried to slip in a 4th or something, but nope, generally expecting to have a difficult time expanding outward, at least until the Protoss supply is over. A little more of that 150 hump. Then you have a little more, like literally just more army to move around your bases. Defend your 4th, 3rd, couple Archons, and the natural, what have you. So until you're at that point, a 4th is a little bit out of reach, and Demi is clearly dedicating to Muta Corruptor yet again. 13 Mutas on the way, Burrow, Baneling Speed, +2 melee, +2 flyer attack, Hive as well. Playing a very fast style of play, and he's going to do it faster in this game because he didn't have to start with the whole Roach Ravager thing. Which I still contest might have had more viability on this map with just how big this is, this area between your 3rd and your natural, but is not super important. Demi chose what he chose and did get the damage with the mutas that he was not able to get last game. We do recall, 36-minute game, but recall like the first 10 minutes, the first muta flyby was surprisingly bad. So that's how I took it anyways. I thought it was surprisingly bad. And then it eventually kind of found its rhythm a little bit, but then it was not about the mutas in that game. The mutas bought time and kept Déca on 3 bases for a little longer, but that wasn't the end-all be-all plan of Demi's. Eventually got into late game Zerg, but wasn't able to really play that out. It's 25 mutas with +1. If there's that many mutas, they are most likely accompanied by a buttload of lings, possibly even already over into ultras. This is something that Déca has not been able to do in a lot of the games, actually. Not a lot of scouting into the main or natural bases. So the main Hive remains unseen, but again, guesswork. You can definitely guess what's happening as a Protoss player based off the amount of aggression you're receiving. So if there were 100 lings and 50 banelings rolling in alongside these muta flybys, you know they've dedicated a hefty amount of resources into attacking you. They might be trying to then transition, but you know that that was the first thing they planned. There has been nothing but Muta Corruptor shown so far, which means that the bank that Demi probably has, he's not been harassed on his 4, now going on 5 and 6 bases, has to be going somewhere. And it's upgrades into Hive yet again, and possibly Ultras yet again. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like those Ultras never got a chance to shine. I completely understand why Ultras are a choice in late game PvZ, especially if the Protoss player is unaware of it and they don't have enough Immortals. Oh! That's actually a very awkward stasis trap. That's still damage, you know? That's a lot of lost mining time. Anywho. The Ultras in the last game were just not that impressive. Parasitic Bomb, pretty good on Phoenix, but fairly good split, I would say. You just don't kind of almost forget about it in these games, but Déca did split away, managed to save a decent number of Phoenix. They do have their range, so the Mutas alone are not super big threats, and with only 5 Corruptors accompanying them, I don't think, in general, the air army is that much of a threat anymore. Déca's managed to recover the supply, get up to 180, just about. 4 bases with stack defense, too, so that's pretty settled for a Protoss. It's going to require a lot of work on the Zerg's part to break a setup like this, which, of course, Demi could get to that point, could get to a breaker-type army, but still kind of getting his feet set, getting ready to then pump out non-stop army units as well as deliver on non-stop aggression. Although his mutas have not been as active as perhaps they would usually be. Viper's soaking up too much energy right there. Doesn't need a Roachmorn, I suppose, and has plenty of extra evolution chambers, so Vipers, you do your thing. Déca expands in a forward position, 5th base on the way. He, again, has managed to make a more streamlined Protoss game for himself. You know, didn't have to cancel a third base and get supply blocked. Really dealt with those mutas fine. Surprisingly worse than last game, I guess, technically, but it was fine. 10 probes, not too bad. And then is on 5 bases. So I would say that Déca might even be able to push prior to Demi having a real late game army. Demi's supply is still caught up in so many mutas that are not going to take direct fights. Viper is also not looking as useful as they should, kind of running around and just getting injured along the rest of the crew. 4 Vipers have died in this game, and it feels like they have not done very much. And considering that a lot of Zerg games have 2 Vipers that live almost indefinitely, that is a bit sore. Bit of a sore point. 2 Vipers living indefinitely in PvZ, I realize, is quite a high bar, but it can happen. Resources lost? Not that many, actually. There just haven't been that many fights. The mutas have dived, but the last dive they did that we just saw resulted in a lot of injured mutas, not a lot of dead ones. So, it's just they just have not been trading very much. Which means Demi has a bank. Déca, unfortunately, not so much. She's a Protoss player, even with some consistent expanding. You just have very expensive armies. Now with 5 bases and a maxed out Protoss army, I suspect that Déca will also start to accrue a bank. +2 attack is going to be denied, but it's really not the most important upgrade. I'd say for sure that the +2 air would be the better grab if Demi was capable of doing so. He just went into the main base and grabbed the first important thing that he saw. Now letting the mutas get killed, I think. Well, they're winning the war, so maybe not. But 13 mutas are not the game plan for the late game TVZ, or PVZ, sorry. So if they die, they die. It's basically where we're at. If they survive and come back later, okay, that's fine as well, I guess. Demi going to be working with Infestors this time around, looking to change up his late game response at least a little bit. And I do love seeing Infestors. I think Fungal, Parasitic Bomb, still the ultimate wombo combo. Well, Fungal, Parasitic Bomb, Corrosive Bile would be the ultimate wombo combo. But Infestor Viper is pretty close to it. And when the Neural Parasites, I mean, there's obviously a potential for that. I'm not as hyped for it as I would be in, for instance, a late game TVZ, in which I think, you know, controlling ghosts and controlling Thors is very, very important, and also I feel like very viable. I think getting Neural Parasites in this matchup seems to be proven to be a little more difficult. You're more likely just to abduct something, get it out of the way and kill it, rather than Neural Parasite it, get out of the way and kill it. Or have it work against its fellow men, which could happen. I mean, imagine a Neural Parasite on a High Templar, if you could even click on it underneath all this mess. You know, I think that's good. I will not deny that would be good. And more bases, more bases, more bases, and more bases. We are on Royal Blood, which is certainly a bigger map. As far as the base count, I believe there is 1.5 more bases, I think. Certainly at least a half more base, and by half base, I mean this gold base. right here, right here. Which Demi has, Déca's taken, and they are really splitting the map in 2. Get it. Get it, late game. And while that sets up, I'm just gonna chill. Here we go. Just remember to stretch, guys, all right? So this gets into a possibly another 35-minute game. Remember to stretch, stand up every once in a while. Drink your water. Very important. Say the same thing to the players, but they have to pay attention. Déca, on a fairly low probe count, by the way. He has lost 37 probes, and I'm not sure exactly when. I think I was memeing a little too hard there. But, yeah, that's not a lot of probes. That's fine. He has the bases. He has a bit of a bank. Most importantly, he's going to have a very maxed out Protoss army. I will say, though, the upgrades are rather lackluster in this game. They are absolutely on the way, though. Triple Forge! Hell yeah, man! Hell yeah! Triple Forge to make up for the one Forge that died. Kill one Forge, 3 emerge. I like it. I like it because I don't think Déca is the one that's going to initiate here. So they're going to be playing a little more passive, and they are going to be building up a bank and building up a defense, and you'll have plenty of time to get upgrades in that case. As one slow-moving army moves out, another slow-moving army moves in. Broodlords now sieging up the gold base of Déca. I notice we also now have the Oracle Revelation, which I think he just maybe forgot about last game. Or maybe the circumstances were different enough, he didn't think he needed it, but now being used very well. Great feedbacks too, popping some of those infestors. I always imagine like a tick popping when that happens. Is that gross? Did I just make everyone throw up? Sorry about that. But seriously, the infestor pop is disturbingly pleasing. My cat found the cat treats. I might have to jump out of my chair. It's Déca. Thank you. Legend. Being a legend, coming in and finally correcting my pronunciation. I did offer the correction at the beginning of this series, and no one took me up on it. So finally we have a French person coming in. Déca. And unfortunately, especially if Demi wins this game, I think I'm going to have plenty of time to make up for the times I was mispronouncing it. Miss Fungal. Déca just getting out. Doing a little bit of damage. Also a little bit of distraction. DT's coming in. Killing the spine crawlers, but not the spores, so the ultras can give chase, but I guess they can only chase so long before... Yep, oh, where'd they go? I don't know. Yes, Déca is French. Playing some fine late game PvZ, by the way. I do like the insistence on the pressure. I liked last game when there was multiple attacks from, you know, different armies. Not as much this time around, but the ever important 6 or 7 DT hit squad. Nailed it. And for Demi, 10,000 resources in the bank was not enough. Up to 14,000. A couple of ducks go down in Tempest, which will die, which should die. Nope, they're not gonna die, actually. Interceptors all out, scaring away the units. Queens dying before they can get those last few shots. Recall on the fungal units. It's a good idea. Very fast reaction right there. Still a loss of units overall for Déca. It's down in the supply. Resources lost is surprisingly even. Not a particularly good sign for Protoss in a lot of games, but weirdly enough, well, it's still not a good sign. Before I go too overboard, it's still not a good sign that the resources lost are so close to each other. But Déca does seem to be very capable of grabbing these two bases. So I don't think it's the worst thing yet. More battles, especially without this gold base being taken, then maybe I'd be more concerned. Thank you, Gauntlet Wizard, for the 20 months. Do we have DT Blink? Yeah, we do. Right before the spine crawlers are all done. Zerg players all across the world are in pain. Oh. Just good enough. Just good enough. That spore was the last vision. Overseer was close enough, I guess. And more battles across that gold base. With all the spine crawlers up now and an Overseer as well, you can put that in surveillance mode. Not have to worry about being F2'd. Then this just means Demi has more bases than his opponent. The Broodlords are almost guaranteed to get a cancel again. Upgrades aplenty yet again, kind of tracking that a little bit. For the air armies, Déca has 3-1, Demi has 3-2. And for the grounds, Demi is completely maxed out, whereas Déca is actually missing some. Triple upgrades still take a while to actually form. Déca is actually moving out, attacking the right base, as I suppose he saw the Broodlord still stuck over on the left side, realized he had some mobility to abuse. I like it. I still would say Mothership for even more abuse would be nice. Imagine attacking over here, pulling the Broodlords, and then Mothership on the left, ready to defend or reposition and attack. It'd be pretty cool. And then, if it was wrong, there'd be a recall. on the Nexus. You recall the mothership, recall the Nexus. Would be cool. But I don't think Déca's thinking about it. Déca, perhaps too many minus 400 400s. Is seemingly given up entirely on the Mothership edition. Don't need it. Strong, independent man. He doesn't need a Mothership. Still waiting for the neural parasite to also come into effect, but I believe the Infestors aren't even part of the main fight. Two of them over on the right side. Abduct will grab a carrier. I think that was all it grabbed. Oh, and Broodlings capturing a couple of High Templars. Ooh, bringing down the High Templar count just to 1. Actually, I would say that's usually a point in which the Zerg army goes, but Demi not maybe realizing how few High Templars are left on the field. Maybe a bit of a missed opportunity. He's still going to grab the Nexus, which I think is kind of the... That's like the bar that Demi wanted to hit, so it's okay. But if there is only 1 High Templar on the field, no Archons either. 19 Corruptors versus 8 Tempest 4 carriers? Well, I suppose it is still a little ambiguous, especially because the stock count is so high. The Corruptors will not just be able to fly over everything in free fire. But certainly the Vipers could be coming in, the Fungals could be coming in. If there's no Storms, there's also no feedbacks. 1 High Templar, the 1 High Templar is in there. Full on energy, waiting to rumble. It's got no backup though. Nice little Fungal at the tail end there. Banelings roll in. They're going to crash into, hopefully, the High Templar. I think it already got its Storms done though. So its job is done. It can now retreat, and the Parasitic Bomb is going to be split away from quite nicely as Déca takes his leave from the map. Recall on cooldown, I believe, so Stalker's reinforcing to try and defend with the help of Zag defense. These are once again cracklings, so they bite through things pretty quickly. But it looks like with the forces combined, it'll be enough to defend, and Déca can even replant the static defense. The resource amount is still pretty good for the Protoss, and it's still very good for Demi as well, who has again been mining rather freely off of these bases. It looks like there was more harassment to the bottom right, or it was just the army. It was literally just the army, Doi. Big army did come through, take down 2 hatcheries. That is nice, and some harassment on the bottom right as well. It's going to take down 3 mining bases. That is considerable. But it's also, you know, kind of a question as to, will that last long? Will Demi not just get those 3 bases back up and running ASAP? We're going to find out, as the armies are awfully close to each other. Demi takes down the Nexus, but now might be a little trapped. High Templars were rebuilt for Déca. I think he realized that when that fight, the last fight was over. They do have enough energy for a Storm. And they're trying to push back, trying to help out. More Stalkers coming in, actually. Blinding Cloud goes down as he realizes it's going to be a Stalker play for the Broodlords. They blink forward into all of those Broodlords. That's a nice amount with almost, like, yeah, they're fully upgraded. Besides the Carapace to help them out, those Broodlings on the ground were quite scary, but every last Broodlord will fall. The air army of the Protoss was also under fire at the same time. It was 2 different fights in one big battle by the looks of it, one in which both players take a whopping amount of damage. Which one remaxes faster? Usually the Zerg player, right? Demi is going to be able to remax. 9 Ultras on the way, handful of Lings, abandoned ship on a base that was already almost mined down anyways. Not the worst loss there, especially if these bases are actually back up and running. This one, no. This one, yes. Gold base is back up and running. So Demi is going to get back to mining. Losing some reinforcements from that base, however. 1 Ultra goes down, and Déca is looking to carry on with a little bit of momentum, but by the positioning of the army, I was going to say, it looks like he's prepared to retreat. He's not going to try and dive for the victory. Very much accurately assuming that the Zerg player is going to remax faster than him. He pulls back. But what does he pull back to? That Nexus is dead in the middle of the map. An attempt at the right side Nexus also is destroyed, and Demi seems to have this game under wraps. 90 army supply of mostly Stalker versus 144 of Demi. Now, Ultras alone are never all that amazing. And that's really what we're down to. The Ultras remaxing and almost pure Ultra remax is a bit of a panic move, I would say. An understandable one, to be clear. But 9 Ultras, by their lonesome, are very easy for... I know. Not very easy for armies to take down, but I would say this type of army, it's easy enough to take down. It's when Lings get involved, they get the surrounds, when Fungals get involved and get the Fungal down, or even a Blinding Cloud pushes the army towards the Ultras. That's when the Ultras are particularly scary, but mano a mano, Stalker Immortal versus pure Ultra, there's a lot to be said about the Stalker's chances, even 60 supply down, but that is, there's a lot of supply. 6 Broodlords were remade, more Corruptors on the way, perhaps more Broodlords as well. Demi has used up every last penny in the mineral bank and is not mining anymore, just from this gold base, which is mining out. This base was never recovered. This one was never recovered. And that left base, which initially I did not give a lot of... I didn't worry much about, it really is necessary. The gases were mined out, but the minerals aplenty could be building Demi's bank up again. Déca's 3 hatchery takedown from earlier on might be one of the reasons that he wins this game. If Demi was mining off of 3 bases, let's say with 35 drones on 18, there'd be such a comfortable bank as well. They'd be maxed out with a bank building again. But now it's very much questionable. As Demi, as he does grab yet another base, is only on 18 drones. He can't even fully saturate it minerals and gas. And while he doesn't need gas right now, it's almost guaranteed he will need it in the future should this game continue going on, which apparently it is. Déca is also rather baseless. Baseless. But he does have a, I think, fresher mining base at the top left. A long distance mining with more probes as well. So it's an almost comically low mineral income per minute, but it is happening. It's a thing. It's going on. Void Rays are coming out. Oh, you don't see this too often. This is often also a bit of a desperate move. As I mentioned, those Ultras look a little desperate, kind of just like, you know, build the thing that comes out fast and easy. But the Void Rays are usually that against Broodlords, when you realize they went Broodlords without your knowledge. Seeing them come in at 31 minutes after the Broodlord fight had already happened is a little funky. I don't know if I like it. I don't know. They're speedy little bastards with flux veins, but going for hit squad maneuvers on like a hive is very dangerous. They are glass cannons. They are vulnerable to the spellcasters that should still be out in the field. There are no Vipers, actually. But I would say that if we are going to be going down to very low econ situations in a PvZ or any matchup in StarCraft, we know how powerful spellcasters are. Free energy, right? Just got to wait it out. And Demi, I think, is also very aware of that. Just needs to find the resources to build up a Viper. Counts. One's on the way, possibly a second one soon. Ling run-bys could be quite damaging, but Demi does not have that much of a bank to build that many Lings. If this was 80 Lings, that Zealot's a goner, and this is getting busted through, but it's only 40. We also have no additional tactic here from Demi to abuse, such as Nidus Worms or Ling drops. He does have Overlord speed, so I guess he could Ling drop, but I don't think he's thinking about it. And 8 Lings would not be all that intimidating. If he could make 3 Overlord drops, that might be worth it. But it's a big question. You're down to your last pennies. You really got to wonder what is worth it. And for Demi, I think prioritizing a little bit of the recovery process for his economy is a little more important. So another base taken. Drones remade slowly. And looks like they both just took the opportunity to bandage themselves up here. But who comes out ahead? I'm not really sure. They both had that immediate reaction to a late game army dying. You know, they both went, oh shit, like I need to do something. So, you know, we had mass stalkers, which were already included even at the beginning, even during the Broodlord fight. And then we had mass ultras, and now it's like adding to it, you know, what is the late game army that you want to have on a low economy? Is this it? Is this a good one? Man, I'm not really sure. Let's count it out here. 4 Zealots, 4 Immortals, 2 Archons, 4 DTs, 33 Stalkers, 7 Void Rays, and 4 High Templars. Against Demi's 7 Broodlords, 35 Lings, 11 Banelings, 18 Corruptors, 11 Ultras, 4 Infestors of Viper, and 5 Queens. Lots more spellcasting opportunity for the Zerg, but that's not surprising. Spawn pool is going to get hit. Takes away the option of Queens and Lings, but Demi does have enough of a bank to replace that. Should Demi have moved out? I think he should have made some moves with the more mobile army. Yeah. Very understandable apprehension trying to get the perfect army, but also making sure to recover your economy. You don't know what bank the Protoss had. You could have a guess, but at the end of the day, you don't know what your opponent's resources are, so probably also a little scared that Déca actually maxed out faster than he did. But Demi maybe should have been using some of these ultras to at least hit some of these spots. You know, like taking out this base is not all that important, and the gateways probably aren't that important either. You go down to 6, but yeah, it'd be something. Is what I'm trying to say is it would be something, and it would probably not cost any ultras, if I had to guess. And then with this down, it gets even easier on the next run by to get into the natural. So I think that would have been worth it, but I understand why there was no move out to try and kill Déca, who had the more mobile army, and for all Demi knew, and already maxed out one. Now it still isn't maxed out, as Déca is chilling on 185 supply, realizing that there is not an urgency to max out. Can leave some supply for emergency warp-ins or for waiting to build up stronger units such as carriers. But right now doing nothing with it, actually. Just microing with the stalkers. Demi has not only recovered the bottom right bases, but the middle base as well. This is one of the fresher bases, so the drones are mining happily. And also the top right base, which has no mining as of yet, but should get some drones momentarily. Stalker's going to the main base, and they're going to kill an Ultralisk Cavern. It looks like the Greater Spire also died at some point. It's being rebuilt, though. A couple of Queens wanting to go down, but the transfuses! Oh, she died anyways. One Queen died for 7 Stalkers, was it? I don't know about that one. I don't know about it. They also killed the Ultralisk Cavern, but other than that, I think those Stalkers did not do very much. Not the best resource trade. Speaking of which, let's check back in on that. Looking a bit more like a typical PvZ with an over 10,000 resource difference, but still not the best case scenario for a Protoss a lot of the time. If it was 15 or 20, I'd feel really good about the Protoss or amazing about the Protoss. Right now, I'm still in question mark land, as we have less than ideal late game armies for both players, I would say. I know Demi has insisted both games on going for a large amount of ultras on the ground, but I would say it's also not super typical. And of course, Déca, primarily gateway army at 36.5 minutes. A little unusual to see there. He was moving over into Stargate units. He got these carriers, and then he just stopped. I thought it was stopping because he knew he didn't have to max out. But now with an even lower supply, I'm quite confused. You should be building something. Okay, 3 carriers. There we go. There we go. As soon as I talked about it. Looks like we're getting into mined out map territory, ladies and gents. Oh boy. That's what I need. That's what I need in my life. Just breathe it in. Late game PvZs. I actually thought that Demi might have been able to get it and remax faster. Get lings all across the map, but did not get the opportunity. And I am with you. I mean, we got the ability to just calmly watch everything as it goes down and go like, oh yes, that was a good move. Quite. But hindsight for Demi, perhaps. Maybe instead of 11 ultras, 7 ultras and 30 lings, whatever larva allowed, I suppose, might have been better. No, looks like Déca's the one that's going to be moving out again. Comfortable on at least 2... No, that's not fresh anymore. That is not fresh at all. If you combine all of the remnants, it's like 1.5 base mining. Demi had gotten up to 2 base mining, I think you would say. 31 drones. 1.5, 2 as well. They both are on similar mining. We can see that in the actual numbers here. In fact, Demi a little bit more, a little bit. I think his drones are just on better saturation. We have Stalkers in the main base yet again. First, they got the spawning pool. No, that was the DTs. First, they got the Ultralisk Cavern. Now they're looking for the Hive. They will not get the Hive. Skedaddle. Air army is still not completely maxed out on upgrades, by the way. Both armies, Zerg and Protoss, are missing +3 armor for their air. Not sure why. This BBB might still be going on when I return to work on Monday morning. It might. Demi is certainly not the one to blame here. And by blame, I really don't mean anything truly negative. But Déca has liked this fast Stargate transition, which certainly encourages late game. If he doesn't die. You know, Demi's trying to kill the guy, and Déca's like, please don't kill me, and then it gets a late game. That's how this is working out. I actually quite like the way that Déca plays with the late game army, though. I mean, this could be, frankly, way more boring. No, nice feedbacks there. Infestors are all out of the equation. Pure Ultra, marching forward, single line, not ideal. Yeah, I like the way he's used his late game army. There have been bouts of nothingness, certainly, where they, both of them were just recovering. They were doing stuff, we were just waiting. But eventually using this army to try and move around the map and try and get some secondary attacks. That's what I liked about his game for game number 1. And he has been trying to do so again, but it's proving to be a little bit difficult. I think the reason it's especially difficult here in this game is, one, because the map is larger. It's just wider. Like, there's more space. And then 2, the way that he's expanding doesn't really cooperate well with, I guess, harassment. Or the situation doesn't, either one. Like, he was able to defend his contention base, or whatever you want to call it. The base that was closest to his opponents in the bottom side with a very limited amount of army. Knowing that possibly he could sacrifice it, and that he would be able to retreat with the army that he left there. And then he attacked multiple times up to the top right. So defend on the bottom, attack on the right, top right. This map and this game doesn't seem to allow Déca the same opportunity. Yeah, if he does move a significant portion of his army over to the right side. Oh, storm drops! I love it! 9 drones go down, and the Archon will add in some more damage. But Déca, if he moves away from this position with a significant amount of army, it's not just one base that's going to fall that still buys him time. It'd be multiple bases. I mean, the Zerg army is allowed to pass this position. It's this base under attack, and this base under attack, and that base under attack, and this base is totally not going to happen. Whereas I think the last map allowed for a little bit more of a like a single file domino effect. You saw one domino falling and you had time to rush over and fix it before it tipped over the rest. So it really has come down to just, once again, big battle, big army versus big army. And here it is, Demi. The one to initiate offensively into the Protoss defense is usually questionable, but the Wombo combo is here. The fungal parasitic bomb, Brute Lords and Ultras decimating the ground army as well. And this is not over. The carriers live. They live with the fungal and the parasitic bomb. They're still alive. There's no anti-air. Déca's air army is alive and well, and it's going to save the Nexus. What? I thought he was a goner. I thought he was completely 100% dead, but the corruptor count wasn't high enough. Demi, with a 50 supply lead, is still in the lead, and no doubt about that. And the bank that he has accrued is, I think, going to still allow him to win this game. 23 corruptors are on the way, and Déca knows that he could be in trouble. He doesn't know what his opponent has, but he is awfully scared of it, and he is correctly assuming that he's about to be in trouble. He's unfortunately going to lose a base that he really did need to mine, and he does have a lot of weak carriers that are only going to be supported by a handful of Void Rays, but he's going to buy as much time as he can. 10 Zells go over to the right side of the base, kill it. Demi, still with 1,000 minerals, is going to be able to replace it. The drone survived thanks to a cheeky burrow, and Déca is the one that needs to start spending cash right here, right now. He's got 3,000 minerals in the bank, just about 700 gas. He's not actually using it as fast as he could. He wants to build up his Void Ray count to tackle whatever Corruptor count might be on the way, but he doesn't have the time to do so. 3 Void Rays will not cut it. Cannons are coming up for the defense as Déca is once again pushed farther and farther back. That's not necessarily a good thing. Unless his last army can actually make the 300 stand, he needs income. And he just lost all of his mining bases. There goes his gateways, so now it's going to be harder to max out on the ground if he thought about it. And I thought he might. I thought he was actually going to panic warping Stalkers, but he did not. He's staying true to his belief that Void Rays are the answer. Mass Void Ray to combat the mass Corruptor might work. If he gets to, let's call it 12 Void Rays. Could he afford 12? No, he can't even afford 12. He doesn't have the gas. So if he gets to 9, which he is going to get to, 3 are going to pop out. 9 Void Rays exactly aligned with 9 carriers against 27 Corruptors. And that's it. We are no longer on Spellcaster Zone, where we're just waiting for the spellcasters to win the game. And that might be more of an issue on Demi's side, honestly. He has the ability to make spellcasters. Oh, I never rebuilt a hive. Oh, he never rebuilt a hive. That's only a lair. That's not a hive. Okay, he cannot make vipers, but he can make infestors. There it is. There it is. Because that's really what usually stops the Void Rays from contributing much to a fight. They pop far too easily. The glass cannons that they are. But the fungals are coming in a little bit late, and Déca is trying to move out. I mean, there's no other option for him. He is on his last army in this game. He either wins or loses right here, right now, and it's not the best fight for him as Alignment is forced out. Then Demi could retreat. You can see him waiting and waiting and waiting. He's actually going to come in and grab one of the Voiders on the right side. That will put him in the Interceptor zone, however. Very dangerous stuff. Upgrades, by the way, finished up for the air army of the Protoss, but not for the Corruptors. And the Corruptors are now going to go in here. Prismatic Alignment's done with. The Void Rays not nearly as helpful. Can the Carriers do it all by their lonesome? They are desperately trying to do so. The Corruptor count is falling. 9 is left over, and that is it. That's it. Déca actually wins 45.5 minutes, and the Carrier Void Ray army does it. Demi. Oh, no. No. That's a womp womp if I've ever seen one. Oh, man. That was supposed to be the Zerg's game. The lack of spellcasters, though, that was a real problem. 3 fungals literally could have led the fight. I mean, he could have been like fungal back away, fungal back away, fungal back away, and that damage would have actually been something to consider, considering how all in the Protoss army was. You know, sometimes the fungal fall back is not very useful because, well, they fall back to the shield batteries and you're like, oh, I didn't do anything. But that would have really started the fight off much better. Very unfortunate. Aye. And Demi very eager to get into the next game, by the way. Just gave me the map. I have to scroll up. Thank you, nope. Okay, hold on. Kalenikos. Thank you for the Prime sub. Exactly. With 5 cats, just part of the show. Oh, man. I can't believe the carriers did it. I mean, he kind of should have. There's actually a lot of things that Demi could have done, which I'll talk about in a second. Thank you, Jake W7, for the 2 months. Ay. This is the only non-cat hair thing on it. It's fine. Oh, on the bottom right, up 2 games. He is Déca. And on the top left, it is Demi. That was just not how that was supposed to go. The carriers being left alive with the second to last fight, it's kind of understandable. In my opinion, it's understandable. Obviously, it's a big mistake on the side of the Zerg player to not have enough when they pulled the trigger and to let the Corruptors take an uneven fight so that there were so many capital ships left over. But I think it's understandable. It was kind of a surprise ending, like, oh, I don't have enough Corruptors, oh shit. But then the last fight did not have to happen the way that it did. I don't think Demi was in a comfortable place. I don't think it is as simple as saying if you did this, you would have won. What's wrong with you? But I do think that there is a little more wiggle room in the game itself. Like, oh my god, I saw that fast probe and I just assumed, oh my goodness, oh my god. Okay, all right, I need to get this done quick then. I thought I was going to block a hatchery. I thought I was going to be all humdrum, no problem. Okay, so then my point, I think that he could have tried to buy more time. He could have given up that base, run away. He would have had to sacrifice a static defense, which I think is why he didn't run. Because he was like, these are my last spores. They're going to be able to help. But he could have, and then maybe had some more fungals to contribute to the army later on. But what ifs and all that aside, we do have a cannon rush with gateways. Demi has not seen this. He sees a pylon, which he, you know, might be real, and it is. And he actually can see that the cannon's building. This one was not seen, but this one is. So Demi is going to be happy that he went for a pool first. But it's not just the cannon rush. And if you try to defeat the cannon rush at your natural without realizing that zealots are also on the way, you could over-dedicate and thus not have enough defense up in the high ground. And that's what I'm especially scared of. Is there a second pylon? No, but all the cannons are finishing anyways. Drone will die, thanks to that second cannon finishing up. Last second cancels on the protective pylons, so we do have 2 zealots out in the field. There they are. They showed up. Déca not committing to this, though. You can't bring the cannons that much closer thanks to creep spread, but you could bring in more zealots. And that is not happening. And the reason I was so scared about the follow-up is because if you do go for the lings, you go for the defense and the natural, you don't have a spine in the main. So I was wondering if 4 zealots, which he never got, would have been a danger. But since there are not even 4 zealots, it's a useless question to ask. Spine crawler's canceled as Demi realizes this attack has been given up on. It did what it wanted, which is get a cancel and a slight contain, as that drone did not manage to escape to build a 3rd base. Overlord is going to be pushed aside. I don't think it dies to this, but it's scouting the intentions of following up. So what happens from here? The problem for Déca is that there's absolutely no wall anywhere. Not in the main, not in the natural. So couldn't you just make lings? But then I guess you can't make enough lings because you only have 1 hatchery. So the speed seems like such a fantastic thing for Demi to have, but when it's only contributing to 7 lings, about to be 17, that's better. I guess it's not the biggest of deals. Forge goes down, which I feel like you might have wanted. It's also a little bit of the defense of the pylon. Exactly. Déca can't leave. I'm actually surprised he's trying to. He wants to save this to possibly add another layer of damage or another layer of contain. Oh, Adept is not tucked in. Oh, Déca not paying attention. Wonderful positioning otherwise. And he moves the Adept back. It's gonna be too many lings, I think. That second Adept would have made all the difference. That second Adept with the army would have been enough, I think. And now I have no idea what happens, by the way, guys. I have no idea what happens in this game. The Oracle's gonna pop out, but Déca's gonna have 0 gateway units. And again, no wall. Lost the forge before he could build a cannon. So it's literally gonna be Oracle defense against an X number of lings. Yeah, Demi should just 2-base all in, right? Well, that's too... Why bother is a better question, actually. Why bother? Why bother all in and maybe losing the game? If he doesn't attack, though, is he actually in that much better of a position? I don't know. This is... It's mad. No, why not? Why not? I'm gonna fully wall. There's no units to put in a gap if there was one. Demi might have gotten away with a Ling Flood if they didn't prioritize killing the proxy gateway. But these gateways are now strong enough with, 2 oracles protecting them that a Ling Flood will not work. And now these lings that definitely look like they should have been drones. 10 lings at least should have been drones. Should have been 5 drones. Because they're not doing anything right now. And they're not going to do anything. I'm not going to say ever, but they're not going to do anything important for a while. Demi still not clearing out these bases, giving Déca a decent idea as to the position of his opponent. Also seeing a Ravager, you do want to be very frightened of an attack, so a Void Ray should be on the way, and exactly that. I think Déca's managed to make this a game. I was very doubtful that was enough when only the hatchery was canceled. But then I wasn't sure how the rest of the game could be played out, because how often do you see this? And I think there's a lot of ways it could have been played out. The way that Demi chose to play it out gave Déca enough breathing room to get a macro game going. So I'm not really blaming Demi, but just kind of the circumstances as we have a potential booting of... Oh, Indy, actually. A couple of weeks ago, the European server rallied against the filthy American and booted me, Steadfast, and Chicken Man out. But America wins! Poor Poland. You think it's giving me a lot of time to really think in how this game is actually going to go, but I'm at a loss. I'm just sitting back. I'm like, where's my popcorn, you know? Like, what's happening? I don't know. What's going on here? Who knows? It's a real question mark. Oracles kill or cancel a hatchery. Roach Ravager appears on the gateway front, but the gateways are at least capable of warping in. Misplaced Stalker warp in, but the Void Ray also finally popped. The Oracles did not see the Spire, and while I was very much convinced that Déca could guess a Spire in game 2, you don't guess a Spire in this game. Like, who does that? If this was Terran versus Zerg, 100%. Terran versus Zerg. Zerg players always do like the cheese into muta thing, but this matchup would be way more difficult to tell. And it looks like the Oracles did just scout the Spire. So the problem with any type of early Spire, no matter the matchup, is that you just don't usually make a lot of mutas. But the benefit of it is that it starts to contain your opponent quite early on. They have to worry first and foremost about not letting the mutas snowball. And by ensuring they don't snowball, they are, you know, later to the third base, they're leading to the main army, and it gets a little weird. Speaking of third base, a canceled third base there for Déca. The Stalkers weren't sure where the army was intending to fight, and there is a wide open area to run in. Maybe we'll see that fixed. Oracles are also out of juice very soon. Déca needs to be conservative with their pulsar beam. The stasis traps are fine. If the army really is leaving, then stasis traps are beautiful. That'll help out a lot. +1 flyer attack is being researched, but no mutas as of yet. Demi taking the opportunity with the Ling Ravager pressure to drone. And then he's getting Corruptors. No, does he think that Déca's going to go into Tempests? This quickly, though? I know he did it in the last 2 games. Those are very different circumstances. There's no other reason to build Corruptors. You don't chase down Oracles with Corruptors. Oh, no. He might be thinking that's going to be like mass Void Ray into Tempest or something. Corruptor's just not going to be helpful here. They are so expensive as well. You know, Demi's on 3 bases, 60 drones now, but this is a very recent development, only now rounding it out to a decent economy for a Zerg player. And Corruptors need kind of more than a decent economy. If they are responding to something, if there actually are Tempests and carriers being built, then they might be worth it. But then it's more of an equalized trade, right? You're both building very expensive units as you're both on a low economy. But if you're wrong, and you know, the Corruptors are literally fighting against nothing because they only hit air, well, that's obviously the worst case scenario. But on top of that, let's say they could attack ground in some imaginary StarCraft 2 world. The amount of Stalkers that Déca can get compared to the Corruptors on this kind of building economy situation is just, I think, superior. So, but easy to explain. Corruptors don't shoot down, guys. They're gonna kill the Oracle? Maybe? Is that gonna be enough? Is that gonna help? Is that worth 8 Corruptors? No. They're gonna kill this Void Ray. And they're gonna, you know, be like, yeah, Corruptors, let's go, team. The Stalker count seems like it might be enough to overwhelm once it gets a couple of better blinks in. Ooh, run away, run away. Ooh, corrosive bows are almost a little spicy there. But you got a proxy gateway coming up, and I really do like how Déca is playing this follow-up. The Corruptors are not looking particularly useful, but Demi is quick to move over into Ling Roach Ravager. He was able to build up a decent Ravager count as this game has progressed. And Déca might be overstaying. +1 attack for him. 0 upgrades on the Ravagers, which are getting a little more revealed. Nothing's protecting them. The Link count very low. Roach count non-existent. Oracle getting in free damage despite having Corruptors. What are they doing? They're peeing on a building is what they're doing. Shield Body Overcharge will not save the day. 3rd Nexus killed. 4th base of the Zerg dead. And they do actually go for an official base trade. 1-for-1. Déca forced to retreat. I don't think his Mass Stalker play is going to get the win as fast as he's hoping. Like, the Stalker's intimidating. The Stalker count's intimidating. The +2 is going to be fantastic. The Stalkers are very good, but I think the problem is just the amount of attention they require. So he is going to pull back. He is going to settle up on 3 bases again, and then he's going to re-engage. And the re-engage could be dangerous still. But this is time that Demi absolutely needs. Demi needs to recover not just his economy with a 4th base coming up, but also the actual army. Get a better army than what was shown defending that 4th base. And the upgrades alone would already make it a better army. We have +1 melee and +1 missile finishing up as I'm speaking. Centrifugal Hooks also on the way with some Banelings. Going to complicate matters if Zealots are included, which Zealots are very much getting included. +3 attack, booted up lickety-split there for a Déca who will hold on to the upgrade lead, no doubt about that. So we have more Corruptors. What? What? Really? I don't know why we have more Corruptors. I actually don't. Corruptors are a funny hit squad unit, but it doesn't make them good. It's more comical because Corruptors are, again, so expensive. And their contribution elsewhere is limited if the Protoss is not going into Skytoss. So building, let's say, 6 Corruptors just to try and kill a Nexus seems odd. But I suppose both players are getting richer. And we know rich people spend money on frivolous things all the time. So Corruptors might be this frivolous thing. 3 Corruptors is all though. I'm gonna call like a habit on that one. I'm gonna call like, you know, you're thinking and doing things too fast and you just build Corruptors and go, wait, why did I do that? Whatever, I'll get them. Whatever, it's fine. Milky, thank you for the 4 months. So hi. Oh, hi, Milky. +3 attack for the Stalkers. About halfway done as Storm boots up. High Templars are being warped in, gaining that energy. Déca is very close to the supply of his opponents, which would usually encourage a good Protoss engagement, but I think waiting for Storm would be the wiser move. If Déca is going to wait for Storm, then Demi will get to a maxed out Zerg army. It already is. 2-2 as well, and perhaps at least 1 5th base, as this base looks like it's going to have to be canceled. Okay. So becoming wealthy and spending money on corruption. I didn't even make that connection. That's pretty good. Lots of Banelings forming in. The army knows about it, and so Déca will be prepared. Stasis traps from earlier helping out a little bit. Not with a lot of catching of the units, but just adding in further Sim City. Now you have to go through this choke, not this stroke. So that's a nice defense of the 3 bases, but Déca's 4th will have to be canceled. This is a almost backup 4th. Well, this is the backup 4th, but this will work. The normal 4th will have to be gotten at a later date. Zealots run in, but the spine calls have already been made. You're gonna need more Zealots than that. Possibly DTs as well. +3 is done for the Protoss as 2-2 finish up for Demi. He is not eager to move into 3-3, rather affording his Hive, his Spines, his air upgrades, Burrow, more Banelings, and then perhaps afterwards, maybe some upgrades. Nope, Lurker Den and Hydralisk upgrade. Did he just run Banes into building Nexus? A little bit. But, again, he's rich. He can do whatever he wants. Fleet Beacon is on the way. That is inevitable. If Déca does not feel confident moving out with his ground army, then he is going to have to move into Stargates. And as he has not maxed out on his ground army, this is fairly obvious. For Demi, the more that the Protoss does not engage with the army on the ground, the more suspicious you are of them making capital ships. That's how it's going to go. So, the timing of the capital ships, let's think about that for a second. If we do assume that the ground armies are made for each other, it's going to be a bit of a wash if they do decide to attack with their ground armies. And let's talk about purely about the Stargate timing. Carriers are coming out as a Lurker Den finishes. The Lurker Den might not come into play in this game, actually. They're gonna get the upgrades, but I'm not sure going into Lurkers is now a good thing to do. You're maxed out, so you're gonna have to give away some supply to even make the Hydras, to make the Lurkers. And then if you are being attacked by this ground army, you're gonna have to be tracking them, which slow burrow Lurkers are not good at. And then, yeah, they might show up with the Tempest or Carriers without you having any form of defense, in which case Lurkers don't shoot up. So not the most useful. It's one possibility. The other possibility is that Demi does go to Lurkers, gets, let's say, 10 or 12 of them with both upgrades, and then uses them to combat the ground army, specifically the Archons and the High Templars as we move into late game. That's completely possible. No! The Archons! That was clutch. That was clutch. Get him. Thank you for the Prime sub. 6 Lurkers are on the way. They could also be used to throw around offensively. They are difficult to deal with once they're burrowed in, even if you have the appropriate units in detection. We also have yet to see any Nidus Worms or drops. Something that I brought up last game, and now that we do actually have Lurkers, I feel is... It's like part of the combination. They're almost a 2-for-1 deal every single time. You see Lurkers, you think Nidus. So I feel like Demi should get some. 5 base setup for Déca, by the way, whose 4th base was in the bottom left. This is his 5th. But, yeah, whatever. Same destination, different journey. And Zealots are going to go ahead and kill this weakened hatchery from earlier. There we go. Better than nothing, but Demi is still comfortable on the mining. Has now realized this base is not only up and running, but is already defended. So that's a bit bad news for Demi. Attack on the right side, actually. Déca was completely pulled out of position. Demi didn't know this for a fact. I don't believe so anyways. This army only just came over. But still, wanted to poke in on the right side as well and saw a wide open opportunity. Takes it, gonna kill an X, gonna kill some gateways, gonna take out SAG defense as well. And by the time Déca makes his way over to the right side, the units will be unstasis trapped. Revelation did reveal most of the Lurkers, but not all of them. Stalkers are going for a counter. Stalkers. I was expecting Zealots. I said Stalkers as if I knew what I was talking about. I was expecting Zealots 100%. Stalkers actually are looking to kill this hatchery, but I don't think they'll be able to. Lings and Roaches and Ravagers responding now, so... Déca loses his 3rd. Demi lost their 6th. But did not lose their 5th. Oh, I'd kind of call this a wash. Yes, the Zerg players once again building up that healthy bank and getting to all their upgrades and technology. But Demi did that in the last 2 games as well, and did not really do much with it. Didn't win the game with it. For Déca, this might be in a little bit of a sketchy zone, but I don't know. 3 bases still mining fully. Maybe it's mined out. I would not say that you're really all that concerned. You'd have to take a pretty bad fight. There's the Protoss in this position to be concerned. So they're both going to get their bases. They're both going to get a bank. They're both going to open up harassment opportunities, and it will be very similar to the last 2 games. Demi's army supply, by the way, the actual composition is a little suspect. I haven't really noticed just how much Déca was able to build up the Tempest count. It is 8 Tempests to 3 Corruptors, 3 Vipers, and 3 Queens. Déca can use the Tempest to just chew away for a while. Have to be careful about the Viper presence, which is why the Oracle should go first. Actually goes after the Lurkers. Figuring they take out the Lurkers, this ground army will be able to take out the Spine Crawlers, no problem, and that does make sense. If you're given a certain amount of time, take out the Lurkers first. There you go. There it is. 8 Corruptors now on the way, but Demi's having a supply problem. He is maxed out with not yet enough Corruptors. It'll be 11 Corruptors over 12 Stalkers, 4 Archons, 2 High Templars, and the 8 Tempest, right? So you need more Corruptors to actually dive in. I think Déca might be going for the killing blow here. Might have timed it out correctly. That they have shown a little bit more hesitation in the last few games. Understandable hesitation for both players, but that's been kind of an issue as to why we've been getting 30, 40-minute games, is that there might actually be a kill move for either player. In this game, it is Déca's kill move. But then they decide to play it a little bit safer and miss opportunities. And it seems like that might be happening once again. This Déca just kind of roams around, ensuring that the easy targets are taken care of. And then he'll think about taking on the Corruptors maybe at a later date. Freebie Corruptor right there. Viper's not able to return any damage. And Déca has also gotten up the 4th base, 3rd base back up again, as well as a 6th or whatever this is. So very happily mining off of many bases, 65 probes. Demi is still mining consistently. With 82 workers, he is still building quite the bank. But the problem is that the Protoss army is on your side of the map, and your army is not the perfect composition. So if you sacrifice your army because you need the supply, that means the Protoss knows that they can continue forward. You go like, yeah, take my Ravagers, take my Banelings. I don't need them anyways. I need Corruptors. They'll kill that and then go, okay, you're remaxing. Let me just continue killing you. So that's really the difficult part for Demi. Demi needs to basically hope that Déca runs away. Then use the army on the ground a little offensively, I would say. Sacrifice it, try and kill a base or something like that. And then go into Corruptors. 5 more Corruptors on the way will make this 13. We're getting to a better number of anti-air. But it's still very concerning. Nice target fire on the Viper. 1 Viper left over, 2 being remade. Probes going down to a Baneling run by. Both of them on a very similar resource bank. Resources lost, favoring the Protoss as expected by about 7,000. Not too shabby. Banelings just keep on rolling in. There we go. And the Banelings did a little bit of scouting as well. They saw the army completely move with the defense. So Demi knew that he could move with the Ravagers. That's a Warp Prism in the main base, and also DT's on a aggressively placed hatchery, shall we call it. Demi's gonna lose access to a fresh base, as well as perhaps the main, as well as perhaps this base. Déca pushing out once more, is running up a very small choke into Lurkers, which is always concerning. But Demi sees that there is not a chance for him to get to the perfect army, and perhaps is also a little defeated from the last 2 games. Actually taps out right then and there. GG. Déca will win 3-0 using the power of late game Protoss. Demi certainly got close to taking him down in the first and second game, I believe, especially the second game, but not quite. Not quite. The end results not really reflecting the type of games that were played out. GG's to Déca, wins the second best of 5 today. Which means we're going to be heading into our third best of 5 will be Namshar versus Eric. Another PV, or no, ZVZ. ZVZ coming up here. Thank you, BASILISK Research Group, for the 10 of the subs. Hell yeah. So we got a ZVZ coming up. We'll talk more about what it'll entail after this short break.